It's my first time working through Revelation with you. It's my first time. So maybe that makes this even more meaningful for me because I've always had a vague fear about the book of Revelation. I didn't, when I read it the first time when I was young, I didn't fully understand it. There were so many numbers and so many unfamiliar scenes, so many images that felt overwhelming. And honestly, I even had this thought at times, what if I read Revelation alone? And somehow get pulled into something strange, like kind of cult, because my Korean name is Shincheon, Kim Shincheon. So and it sounds very similar to Shincheonji, right? So I was teased about it often when I was younger, and when I heard that Shincheonji often use this book, the Book of Revelation, to deceive people, I think I developed this unnecessary fear. And then this happened in one day after returning to church. When I returned church, I introduced myself to the pastor, to a pastor. Hi, nice to meet you. Not English, as like Korean. 안녕하세요. 김신천입니다. My name is 김신천, Shincheon Kim. And he replied, I think it was joke. Oh, are you from Shincheonji? At the time I just returned church, so I was shocked. After that, whenever I introduced myself in church, in Korean church actually, I would jokingly add, just to clarify, I have nothing to do with Shincheonji. Anyway, I used to have a vague resistance towards Revelation, but through this series, I began to see it differently. Revelation is not simply mysterious, and it is not merely about distant future events. It speaks directly into our present reality. It challenges how we live today. Church, we must ask ourselves a serious question, this question. The event of the last day could come sooner than we expect. If that were tomorrow, am I ready? And at the same time, the Lord is not only asking us a question, He is commanding us, be ready. Today's passage begins with the phrase, great sign. This is an important expression in this passage. When John says that a great sign appeared, he is showing us that a new scene in his vision new scene in his vision is beginning. In the book of Revelation, John often uses a phrase like "I saw" to introduce a new section. So chapter 12 is not just a continuation; it marks the beginning of a new part that continues through chapter 15. Up to this point, we have been looking at the seven seals and the seven trumpets, and there have been many different views, as you heard that, about how to interpret them. But chapter 12 is somewhat clearer to understand. Here it becomes easier to see whether John is describing something in the past or something that is still to come. Of course, we need to pay carefully attention to understand this passage so that we do not miss what he is showing us. This chapter can be divided into three parts. I think it sounds like lecture. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I in this week I meditate this passage and I read some books about this Revelation chapter 12. But there are so many information, but I cannot choose picking just what I want. I just yeah I'm saying sorry to now. Um, Anyway, this chapter can be divided into three parts: verses 1 to 6, 7 to 12, 13 to 17, and there is something very important to notice. Verses 1 to 6 and verses 7 to 12 describe the same conflict, but from different perspectives. If we keep that in mind as we read, the chapter becomes more clearer. First, let's look at verse 1 to 6, 1 through 6. This section shows the conflict between the woman and the dragon as it unfolds on earth. Let me read the text for us. And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadem. His tail swept down a third of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. But her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, in which she is to be nourished for 260 days. John sees a mysterious vision, a glorious woman, and a great powerful dragon. Before we go further, I want to clarify something. This woman is not Mary. Some Catholic scholars strongly argue for Mary's divine status based on this chapter. But this woman does not represent a single individual. It is more faithful to understand her as representing Israel. Throughout Scripture, Israel, or even the people of God as a whole, is often described as a woman. In verse 2, the woman is pregnant. She is in labor. She gives birth to a male child. And verse 5 clearly tells us who this child is. He is the one who will rule all nations with a rod of iron. This language connects directly to Psalm chapter 2. There is a same expression in the Bible. It points to the Messiah. And the text also says that the child was caught up to God and to his throne. This clearly refers to Jesus. He was born into this world. He died on the cross. He rose again, and he ascended into heaven. Scripture tells us that God exalted the one who was slain. So Revelation chapter 12 is giving us a compressed picture of the life and redemptive work of Christ. While the woman is giving birth, another sign appears. About what? a great red dragon. The description is overwhelming. 7 heads, 10 horns, 7 crowns. It is meant to look powerful, terrifying, unstoppable. I want you to notice something. John calls this being a dragon, right? Perhaps he used that word because of what he saw, its size, its appearance, its power. But in Scripture, the image of a dragon is often used for enemies who oppose God's people, like Egypt in the Psalms. So the dragon represents a cosmic enemy, a destructive force, one that stands against God's saving work. Some say it represents Rome, but the text will make something even clearer in verse 9. This dragon ultimately represents Satan himself, the ancient serpent. The dragon stands before the woman, waiting to devour the child. He is ready. He is watching, but he fails. Before he can destroy the child is caught up to God. This shows us something important, very important. All of Satan's attempts to stop God's redemptive plan, God's plan to save his people, ultimately fail. He could not stop Christ's birth. He could not stop the cross. He could not stop the resurrection. He could not stop the ascension. The decisive victory of Christ cannot be overturned. And here is the powerful contrast. The dragon looks enormous, terrifying, dominant, but he cannot harm a laboring woman or a newborn child. Think about that. There are few images more valuable than a child in labor or a newborn baby. And yet, the dragon cannot touch them. Why? Because God protects. God prepared a place for a woman in the wilderness. God lifted the child to his throne. This is not a story of human strength. It is a story of divine protection. And this speaks to us in our lives. There may be threats that feel like dragons, situations that feel overwhelming, a fear that waits in front of us, as if ready to shallow us whole. But when we depend on God, He protects. He has already prepared a place. We may feel vulnerable, but we are not abandoned. Now, let's continue with verse 7 through 12. This section is describing the same reality we just saw, but from a different perspective. Before we saw the conflict on earth, now we see what is happening in heaven. Let me read the text for us, 7 through 12. Now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, "Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accuser of our brothers has been thrown down, who accuse them day and night before our God. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even unto death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short." Here, war breaks out in heaven. Michael and his angels fight against the dragon. And the dragon fights back, but he is defeated. And then the identity of dragon becomes clear. Verse 9 tells us plainly, the great dragon is the ancient serpent. He is called the devil and Satan. Earlier, I mentioned that some interpret the dragon as Rome or emperor, but verse 9 takes us deeper. This is not just temporary political power. This is the same serpent from Genesis, the one who deceived humanity from the beginning. The real enemy behind history is Satan himself. And here is something very important. The victory in this war was not ultimately achieved by Michael. Verse 10 tells us clearly what brought victory: the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ. The decisive victory of Christ came through his cross and resurrection. Through God's redemptive plan, the dragon was cast down. This is the moment the war was decided. But the text goes even further. Verse 11 says, "They have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even unto death." This is no longer speaking only about Christ. It is speaking about believers. The victory of Christ becomes a victory in which his people participate. How? By the blood of the Lamb and by their testimony. They did not deny Christ even when facing death. They held on. They persevered. Christ was faithful in the face of temptation and suffering. He endured and he overcame. And throughout history, countless believers followed him with the same faithfulness and perseverance. And they shared in his victory. This is not only about the past. This is about us. We are still living in the time of conflict. The threats may look like dragons. The temptations may look like serpents, but they do not decide how the story ends. Christ has already won. The dragon cannot ultimately destroy us. The serpent may try to trip us, but he cannot defeat those who belong to Christ. So we continue, we fight, we endure, we confess our faith. And one day, the victory that is already secured in heaven will be fully rebuilt. There is another important lesson here. When John first see the being, this being, he called it a dragon. It looks terrifying, overwhelming, but Scripture later identifies it clearly. As you heard that, it is ancient serpent, it is Satan. John was initially overwhelmed by what he see, but Scripture gives us discernment. It is not genuine, it is not true dragon, it's just one who was deceived us before from the Genesis. John was, but Scripture gives us like this discernment, and this teaches us something. Don't trust your eyes alone. Trust what Scripture says. Let Scripture interpret what you see. We do not naturally have perfect discernment, right? But in God, through His Word, we are given through discernment. If we let's think about this. If something difficult happens in your life, is it automatically bad? Not necessarily. Just yesterday, on the way to Daejeon for Korean mission, I had a few Korean members in my car. For a short moment, we listened to Korean worship songs together. One member shared the lyrics of the song called 광야를 지나며, passing through the wilderness. The lyrics speaks about how in the wilderness, our pride is broken, our dreams are laid down, and we begin to seek only the will of the Lord. And that confession was deeply connected to her own life. She has been going through difficulty, but through the word, through the prayer, she gained discernment. She began to see her situation not just with her emotions, but through God's perspective. That is what discernment looks like. We must learn to see the word through what God reveals, not merely through what we feel. Because the war is not over. Verse 12 tells us that there is rejoicing in heaven, but on earth the conflict continues. Victory is declared, but the battle still unfolds. And we are living in that tension. Let me read the rest of passage. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given the two wings of the great eagle so that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness, to the place where she is to be nourished for a time and times and half a time. The serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with the flood. But the earth came to the help of the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from his mouth. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offsprings, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And he stood on the sand of the sea. Now something very important is happening here. This section is intentionally connected to verse 6. If you look carefully, you will notice repetition. The woman fleeing, the wilderness, the prepared place, and the time reference a time, times, and half a time, which connects to the 260 days mentioned earlier. This is not random. This is not coincidence. Verses 13 to 16 are expanding on what we already saw in verse 6. It is the same conflict, but described in greater detail. There is also a shift in focus. At first, the dragon tried to destroy the child, but he failed. Now he turns toward the woman, and once again she is protected, failed. Just as the child was protected, the woman is protected. And then in verse 17, the focus shifts again. The dragon goes off to make war on the rest of her offspring, those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. That means us. The target changed from the child to the woman, and now to the believers. But there is something that does not change: God's protection. The same God who protected the child, the same God who protected the woman, the same God who has preserved his people throughout scripture and history. He is our God. He does not change. He is the same God. In verse 17, the dragon stands on the sand of the sea. Imagine that scene. The dragon standing there, or here, in front of you. And we are standing in front of dragon. What do you feel? Huge, red dragon? Probably we feel fear. But we are not led by our emotions. We are led by truth. And what is the truth? The truth is this: the war has already been decided in heaven. Christ has already won. And God continues to protect his people. Yes, the dragon is furious. The battle continues on earth, but his time is short. His rage is loud, but it is limited. So when we stand in front of verse 17, it is as if we hear a command from God: be ready. Be ready for the battle. Not with fear, but with faith.